Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying every word she said, trying to make sense of what felt real and what was just a game? That sinking feeling in your chest, the confusion, the doubt, the emotional chaos, it's not in your head. You're not overthinking. You're not being dramatic. You're caught in something toxic, and deep down, a part of you already knows it. You can feel it in the silence when she pulls away for no reason. You feel it when she flirts just enough to hook you, then disappears when you lean in. It's the subtle manipulation that keeps your heart chained to uncertainty. And while part of you wants to believe it's all innocent, your gut knows better. You're not crazy, you're being played. This isn't love. This is control wrapped in charm. What she's doing isn't affection, it's strategy. She's testing your emotional limits to see how far she can pull the strings. And while you're busy analyzing every message, wondering what you did wrong, she's feeding off the power. That's the game. Give just enough to keep you hooked, take just enough to keep you chasing. And if you're not careful, it will drain you, not just of your time, but your self-worth, your peace, your sense of who you are. But this moment, right here, right now, is where it ends. Because once you see the game, you stop being a piece on the board. Once you recognize the pattern, you can break it. And you must, not for her, not for revenge, but for yourself, for your sanity, for your dignity. You were never meant to beg for affection, to chase after clarity, to compete for love like it's some prize to be won. Real love doesn't confuse you. Real love doesn't test your loyalty just to validate someone else's insecurity. You have to stop trying to solve her like a puzzle. The truth is, she knows exactly what she's doing, and the longer you stay tangled in the web, the more power you give her. But there's something stronger inside you, a quiet strength, a fire that refuses to be extinguished by mixed signals and empty promises. That strength is your key. It's your exit. And the moment you tap into it, the game collapses. If you're tired of the anxiety, the second guessing, the constant emotional tug of war, then stay, or stay with me through this message. Because what you'll discover isn't just how to outsmart the games, it's how to outgrow them. It's how to build the kind of emotional power that no one can touch. This isn't about becoming colder. It's about becoming wiser, sharper, unshakable. You've been played long enough. It's time to flip the script. And by the end of this, you won't just see through the games. You'll be untouchable by them. That's your reward. That's your power. And it starts now. She doesn't want love. She wants control. And the way she gets it is by making you unsure of yourself. She uses emotional tension like a weapon, giving affection only when you've earned it according to rules she never explains. One day she's warm, the next distant. One moment she compliments you, the next she ignores you. This cycle isn't random, it's deliberate. It's designed to keep you chasing, apologizing, proving, questioning. And the more uncertain you become, the more power she gains. It's not about how much she likes you. It's about how much she can make you need her. That's the currency of emotional manipulation, dependence. And once you're hooked on her approval, you'll tolerate things you once said you never would. You'll rationalize her disrespect. You'll convince yourself you're the problem, that if you were more confident, more patient, more chill, she would treat you better. But here's the truth most men never hear. Nothing you do will ever be enough for someone who feeds on your confusion. The problem isn't you. The problem is the game. The real trap isn't falling for her. It's falling into self-doubt. That's what breaks you. That's what keeps you stuck. But you don't have to stay stuck. The first step is understanding the psychology behind her tactics. She operates through unpredictability because it makes your brain crave certainty. It's a loop of reward and withdrawal that mimics addiction. Your mind starts searching for patterns, trying to earn back the version of her that was once sweet, loving, and present. But that version was bait. It was never real. And as long as you keep chasing it, you'll stay in her trap. When you understand this, you begin to pull yourself out of the emotional fog. You begin to see that your pain isn't coming from love. It's coming from manipulation. And once you name it, you take away its power. You stop responding emotionally. You stop trying to impress her, decode her, or change her. You detach from the illusion. That's when everything starts to shift. She loses her grip. Her silence no longer scares you. Her approval no longer defines you. You become still. And stillness is terrifying to someone who needs chaos to feel powerful. The greatest move you can make is not reacting. Let her wonder, let her test, let her try to trigger you, and give her nothing. Because silence breaks patterns. Detachment shatters manipulation. When you no longer need her to act right for you to feel right, you win. Not by playing better, but by stepping off the board entirely. You weren't made to chase affection like a starving dog. You were made to walk in truth, with strength that doesn't beg. When you own that, no game can touch you. That's when you become the one in control. That's when she realizes the game is over. Because you're no longer playing, you're free. You don't take your power back by explaining yourself. You take it back by refusing to hand it over in the first place. Every time you overthink her silence, every time you chase after her mood swings, every time you try to decode her mixed signals, you're giving her control. Not because she's stronger than you, but because you've allowed your emotions to sit in her hands, and no one deserves that kind of access. You have to understand your attention is energy. Your thoughts are currency. What you focus on grows. And if you keep feeding her games with your energy, they will keep growing and you will keep shrinking. This is where most men fail. They're too focused on fixing the woman when the truth is they need to fix the way they respond. You don't win by convincing her to treat you better. You win by becoming the man who no longer tolerates being treated that way. You set the standard, not through your words, but through your silence, your walk-away power, your emotional self-control. That's the kind of strength that can't be manipulated. That's the kind of presence that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't need to prove anything. And when you become that man, everything shifts. You stop orbiting her approval. You stop begging for clarity. You stop participating in cycles that strip you of your self-worth. Because real power is calm. Real power doesn't flinch. It doesn't respond to disrespect with desperation. It responds with distance. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And the longer you keep tolerating games, the more you teach her that she can play you. But the moment you stop responding, the moment you stop showing up for the drama, the dynamic collapses. She either steps up or she fades out. Either way, you win. Your job is not to decode her intentions. Your job is to master your own. Are you here to be chosen, or are you here to choose? Are you here to impress, or are you here to express who you truly are? This is where the separation begins. You're not like the others. You're not here to compete for attention that comes with a price tag. You're here to stand solid in your value, unshaken, undistracted, unbothered by the noise. That's what she can't control. That's what no game can touch. If you feel yourself slipping, remind yourself, you've already played that game. You already know how it ends. This time, choose differently. Choose stillness. Choose detachment. Choose to keep your peace, even if it means walking away. Especially if it means walking away. Because the man who doesn't flinch, the man who doesn't chase, the man who keeps his soul intact, that man is untouchable. And once you become him, no one ever gets to play with your heart again. Unusual activity has been detected from your device. Try again later. 95B64 A3 A8 F70 2097 Chi. Emotional detachment is not a weakness. It's a skill. It's the discipline to see clearly when your emotions want to blur the truth. It's the ability to observe without absorbing, to remain calm while being tested, to withhold your energy when someone tries to provoke it. When a woman plays games with your heart, her power comes from your reactions. She wants you off balance. She wants you unsure. She wants you to feel a constant sense of pursuit, like you're always one step away from earning her full attention. But the moment you detach, the chase ends. You're no longer emotionally available to be controlled, and that changes everything. Stillness confuses manipulation. When she gives you silence and you give her peace. When she withdraws and you do not follow. When she flirts with others and you stay unshaken. That's what breaks the cycle, because now you're not reacting to her rhythm. You're moving to your own. You've stopped giving her the fuel she needs to maintain control. And now she's the one uncertain. Not because you're playing games, but because you've risen above them. The more centered you become, the less chaotic the outside world feels. And the truth is, a woman can't pull you into a game you refuse to play. She can only use your own need against you, your need for attention, for validation, for closure. When you kill that need, she loses her leverage. And now every move she makes is powerless. You don't respond because you don't need to. You don't chase because there's nothing worth chasing. Your peace has become your standard, and anything that threatens it doesn't even qualify for your attention. That kind of discipline isn't built overnight. It's forged in discomfort, in the moments when your emotions scream at you to react, in the nights when silence feels unbearable, in the temptations to check in, to explain, to seek resolution. You win when you don't give in, because every time you choose stillness over reaction, you build mental armor. You reinforce your standards. You evolve. And as you evolve, something deeper awakens. You begin to realize you were never meant to prove yourself to anyone. That the right woman won't test your value. She'll recognize it. She won't play with your heart. She'll protect it. But that kind of woman only shows up when you become the kind of man who no longer tolerates less. The kind of man who leads with clarity, not confusion. Who doesn't flinch when tested. Who doesn't chase approval. Because he knows who he is. He knows what he brings. And he knows what he's no longer available for. You don't need her to change. You need to stop allowing her to shape you. Emotional detachment is not closing your heart, it's guarding your soul. And when you live from that place, you don't just survive the game, you end it. On your terms, in your power, untouchable. There are always signs before the storm hits. The problem is you ignored them. You mistook inconsistency for complexity. You told yourself she was just guarded, when in reality, she was testing how much she could get away with. You convinced yourself her silence was depth, her flirty behavior was harmless, her hot and cold affection was just emotional damage, but deep down, your gut knew. It always knows. What you felt wasn't confusion, it was truth begging to be seen. The pattern was there. It was in the way she kept you slightly uncertain, always almost enough, never fully chosen. And the longer you ignored the red flags, the deeper you fell into a game that was never meant to end in your favor. It starts small. She doesn't text back, and you let it slide. She gives you mixed signals, and you make excuses. She flirts with others in front of you, and you tolerate it, thinking you'll win her full attention if you just stay calm. But these aren't harmless behaviors. They are calculated patterns designed to keep you off center. And every time you let it go, you teach her you'll stay no matter how she acts. That's how the game tightens its grip. Not with one big betrayal, but with 1,000 little moments where you betray yourself just to keep her around. You need to become a man who sees the signs and doesn't flinch. A man who doesn't negotiate with behavior that disrespects his value. Because if you don't set the standard early, you'll spend the entire relationship trying to fix what should have been rejected at the start. You don't change someone's character by loving them harder. You don't rewrite red flags by rewriting your boundaries. You either walk in self-respect or you crawl in self-denial. The choice is always yours. Real strength is in saying no when it's hard, in walking away when it hurts, in ending something toxic before it ends you. And the reason this is so rare is because most men would rather cling to hope than face reality. But hope without truth is just denial dressed in optimism. You can't build peace on a foundation of chaos. You can't find love by drowning in emotional confusion. You find it by standing firm, by listening to your gut, by recognizing that love never needs to test, twist, or trick you to be felt. This is your turning point, the moment where you decide to stop rationalizing disrespect, where you stop calling it love when it's really control. You don't need more proof. You don't need one more excuse. You need to trust yourself again. And when you do, the red flags won't just be warnings. They'll be your cue to walk, with your head high, with your heart guarded, with your power fully intact. Because from now on, the games end the moment you see them. And the only thing she'll ever test again is your absence. You've spent enough time trying to earn what should have been given freely. Now it's time to reverse the frame, shift the entire dynamic. You are no longer the one being chosen. You are the one who chooses. You are no longer waiting for affection. You are commanding respect through your presence, through your silence, through your focus. The moment you stop chasing, she starts wondering. The moment you stop explaining, she starts questioning. And the moment you stop reacting, she starts feeling the void your absence creates. That's how the power shifts. Not through games of your own, but by becoming so solid in who you are that her manipulation collapses under the weight of your composure. She can't play a man who doesn't flinch. She can't bait a man who doesn't bite. She can't confuse a man who sees through every mask and refuses to be entertained by illusions. The more emotionally grounded you become, the less interesting you become to those who seek control. And that's exactly what you want. Because you weren't made to be interesting to manipulators. You were made to be respected by equals. You were made to inspire peace, not survive chaos. But it starts by becoming the kind of man who never loses himself in pursuit of someone else. Stop revolving around her. Let her revolve around you. Not because you need the ego boost, but because you've built a life so rich in purpose, so full of movement, that anyone who wants to be part of it has to meet you in strength, not drag you into weakness. You don't have to pretend to be mysterious. You just have to be deeply focused. You don't have to act indifferent. You just have to live so rooted in your values that emotional games simply don't register. They bounce off your clarity like noise against stone. You reclaim your value by refusing to negotiate it. You elevate your worth by walking in it, unapologetically. And when she sees that she no longer gets to influence your mood, your decisions, or your direction, everything changes. You become the mystery. You become the one she can't read. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're too busy being someone she was never prepared to handle. She may escalate her efforts. She may try harder. She may throw confusion, flattery, silence, or chaos at you. Let it come. Let it pass. Your stillness is the test. Your emotional self-control is the answer. Because the man who doesn't chase becomes the one who's chased. The one who moves with quiet strength becomes the one she regrets losing. Not because he tried to win her, but because he finally stopped trying. You've flipped the script. You're no longer chasing someone's approval. You're building a life that others want to be part of, and that changes everything. Because now, she's no longer the prize. You are. The most powerful move you will ever make is silence. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but from clarity. Because silence is not a tactic, it's not manipulation in return, it's a declaration. A statement that says, I no longer dance for confusion. When she plays the game of retreat and expect you to chase, give her distance. When she withdraws affection to spark anxiety, meet her with indifference. When she disappears to make you question your worth, disappear further. The moment you stop responding, you stop feeding the fire. And when there's no more fuel, the game burns out on its own. Silence doesn't beg for respect, it demands it. And not just from her, but from yourself. Every time you choose not to respond, you teach your mind that peace is worth more than approval. Every time you remain still in the face of provocation, you train your emotions to serve you, not sabotage you. That's how strength is built. In the pause between impulse and action, in the restraint to observe instead of react, in the wisdom to understand that not every invitation to chaos deserves your presence. Let her feel your absence, not to hurt her, not to make her miss you, but to remind yourself what it feels like to put your peace first. The kind of woman who plays games thrives on emotional attention. It doesn't matter if it's love, anger, confusion, or desperation. Any response validates her power. Your silence strips it away. It forces her to face herself, to sit in the mirror of your stillness. And if she never returns, it's proof that your presence was only valuable when it was submissive. Let that be your closure. You don't owe anyone access to your emotional space, especially someone who violates it with manipulation. You have the right to disappear from disrespect. You have the right to protect your soul without explanation. Let her think whatever she needs to, that you're cold, that you changed, that you don't care. Let her create whatever story helps her sleep at night. You don't need to defend your decision to detach. Your energy explains everything. True power is quiet. It doesn't announce itself, it just exists. It doesn't need to prove anything, chase anything, or retaliate against anything. It simply rises above the drama and keeps walking. That's who you are now. Not a man who gets pulled back into the cycle, but a man who breaks it for good, and not by force, but by discipline. By no longer arguing with dysfunction, by no longer showing up to emotional games as a willing participant. Your silence is not absence, it's elevation. It's the space where you outgrow her reach. And when she finally notices the emptiness you left behind, it will be too late. Not because you wanted to punish her, but because you finally chose to protect yourself. The game ended the moment you stopped playing. And now your silence speaks louder than anything you ever could have said. When you stop chasing, you start building. Every moment you used to spend analyzing her words, overthinking her silence, waiting for her to come back, you now reclaim. That energy belongs to you. That time belongs to you. And the man you become when you stop investing in confusion is a man who becomes impossible to ignore. This is where transformation begins. Not by hoping she changes, but by deciding you will. Every workout, every late night grinding in silence. Every time you choose your purpose over her patterns, you rise. And with every step forward, her games start to look smaller, pettier, irrelevant, because your world no longer revolves around her. It revolves around who you're becoming. There is no greater revenge than elevation, no stronger statement than progress. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone who underestimated you. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who only valued you when you were vulnerable. You don't need to make her see your transformation. Just become it. Build in silence. Rise in discipline. Let your life speak what your words no longer will. Because the moment you begin to focus on your own growth, her absence stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like freedom. This is your season of self-respect, not a season of numbness or fake indifference, but real, rooted self-respect, the kind that refuses to chase people who don't care, that refuses to entertain dysfunction, that refuses to delay your purpose for temporary affection. You weren't put here to be emotionally entangled with someone who doesn't know how to value you. You were put here to lead, to build, to rise. And if she can't keep up with that, she was never meant to stay. Every time you elevate, your standard rises, and as your standard rises, your tolerance drops. What once fascinated you now bores you. What once confused you now exposes itself instantly. You no longer get stuck in emotional games because you've seen the cost, and you've decided your peace is too expensive to trade for temporary attention. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. That's growth. That's maturity. You don't chase closure. You don't beg for clarity. You don't try to make her see the damage she caused. You take that pain and convert it into fuel. You take every unanswered message, every ignored effort, every dismissive word, and use it as a reason to grind, to improve, to evolve. Because one day, when she looks back and sees what you've become, she'll realize she was playing games with a man who became untouchable. Keep moving, keep building, keep growing. Let her play while you build. Let her stall while you rise. Let her test other men while you become the man she could never control. The game she played only made you stronger. Her silence gave you space. Her distance gave you direction. And now you're no longer asking why she changed. You're too focused on how much you've grown. Your biggest weakness was never caring too much. It was caring without conditions, loving without standards, giving your all to someone who gave just enough to keep you uncertain. And now that you've pulled back, now that you've redirected your energy inward, you see it clearly. What you once called connection was really control. What felt like love was really leverage. And what you thought was loyalty was just your fear of being alone disguised as devotion. But that version of you no longer exists. Because now you've learned to love with boundaries. You've learned that peace is more valuable than potential. And most of all, you've learned that your heart isn't a playground for someone else's ego. You don't need another lesson. You've already felt the burn of being ignored, the sting of being used, the ache of waiting for someone who never truly saw you. And you've survived it. You didn't break. You didn't fold. You rose. Every time she pulled away, you grew stronger. Every time she played a game, you became wiser. And every moment you spent alone became an opportunity to rebuild yourself from the ground up. What once broke you has now built you. Now you operate on truth, on self-worth, on clarity. You no longer bend to fit into someone else's confusion. You no longer shrink to make her feel powerful. If she can't meet you with honesty, she doesn't get access to your presence. If she can't love you with consistency, she doesn't get to taste your loyalty. And if she comes back, it won't be to the same man she left. It'll be to the one who outgrew her games, who no longer reacts, who no longer waits, who no longer needs anything from anyone who operates through manipulation. Because power isn't loud. It's not desperate. It's not reactive. Power is silent, controlled, deliberate. It's in your ability to walk away without a word. It's in your capacity to elevate without making noise. It's in your presence being so solid that her tactics no longer rattle you. That's the man you are becoming. Not a man who seeks revenge, but a man who is simply untouchable, unbothered, unavailable to anyone who doesn't match his peace. There's no victory in getting her back. The real victory is becoming the kind of man who never needs to. Because when you live at that level, you don't chase closure, you are closure. You don't beg for attention, you command respect. And anyone who tries to bring chaos into your life will be met with silence and distance. No arguments, no explanations. Just a presence so full of self-respect that the game ends before it ever begins. Keep rising, keep building, keep protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You've earned it, and no one playing games deserves to steal it. Your transformation is the final move, the one she never saw coming, the one that ends it all for good. You don't need to expose her. You don't need to explain her games to anyone. You don't need to shout about how she treated you, because the man who truly rises doesn't speak from wounds. He speaks from wisdom. You've learned that silence is louder than revenge, that letting go is stronger than holding on, that moving forward with purpose is far more powerful than trying to prove a point. Your strength isn't found in retaliation. It's found in your ability to stay focused when someone else tries to pull you into distraction. That's the difference between power and impulse. One leads, the other reacts. And you're done reacting. You've finally stepped into a place where your energy can no longer be hijacked, where you don't respond to confusion with desperation, where you don't meet disrespect with over-explanation. Because a man who knows who he is doesn't need to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding him. You owe no woman clarity if she built her connection with you on chaos. Your silence is not cruelty, it's closure, not for her, for you. It's the line you draw that says, this is where I stop allowing you to pull me out of alignment. And now the focus returns to what matters, your mission, your growth, your self-respect. You begin to move differently. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop measuring your value by her attention and start anchoring it in your consistency. Because you've realized that true masculinity is not loud or aggressive. It's calm, it's centered, it's secure. It doesn't flinch when affection is withdrawn. It doesn't crumble when approval is withheld. It doesn't chase because it doesn't need to. That's the man who becomes magnetic. Not because he's trying to be, but because he simply refuses to betray himself for temporary validation. He doesn't play harder, he plays smarter. He doesn't get pulled into emotional highs and lows. He stays grounded in purpose. And the more grounded he becomes, the more the games lose their appeal. What once triggered him now reveals who's not meant to go with him. What once pulled him in now reminds him how far he's come. This is your edge. Not pretending to care less, but genuinely caring more about your peace than her approval. Not pretending to be unaffected, but actually being unmoved. Not acting strong, but being unshakable. That's real power. That's what turns the game on its head. Because when she realizes you've outgrown the cycle, when she senses that your presence is no longer accessible, when she sees you building without needing her attention, it ends. Not with a fight, not with words, but with you walking away, never looking back. Let her play. Let her wonder. Let her regret. None of it touches you now. You're no longer the man who answers chaos with concern. You're the man who answers with distance, silence, and purpose. You've already won. Because you've outgrown the game, the moment you stop needing to be understood is the moment you become unstoppable. You no longer seek validation in her eyes. You no longer beg to be seen, heard, or chosen, because you've already chosen yourself, fully, without hesitation, without compromise. And that choice rewrites everything. You're no longer stuck in cycles of explaining your worth to someone who benefits from pretending not to see it. You're no longer trying to heal through someone who broke you with intention. You've stepped into a level of maturity where her confusion doesn't disturb your clarity, where her silence doesn't echo inside your mind, and where her absence no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like space to breathe again. This is what freedom looks like. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's the quiet decision to rise above the emotional fog and stop sacrificing your sanity for temporary moments of closeness. You're not here to win games. You're here to win peace. And peace doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't tolerate manipulation in the name of love. It protects itself without apology. That's who you are now. A man who guards his energy, who leads with presence, who no longer answers to the pull of someone who never knew what to do with his heart. The more distance you place between you and dysfunction, the more clearly you see your own value. You begin to realize that what you thought was chemistry was actually chaos, that what you called passion was really a power struggle, that what felt like love was just your wounds bonding to hers. But now that you've healed, now that you've chosen growth over drama, those same patterns don't pull you in, they push you away. That's how you know you've evolved. You feel it in your nervous system. You feel it in the peace you refuse to give up. You feel it in the conversations you no longer entertain. Let her wonder what changed. Let her feel the shift in your energy. You don't need to explain anything. Real growth is silent. You've stepped out of the arena. You've stopped playing. And she can't score points in a game you've already left behind. She'll reach for the old version of you, the one who chased, who questioned, who crumbled under silence. And he won't be there because he was a phase, a necessary chapter, but not the final one. You are now in control not just of your actions, but of your emotions, your standards, your direction. You've reclaimed every part of yourself you once gave away too freely. And the man you are becoming doesn't settle for attention. He waits for alignment. He doesn't entertain confusion. He demands clarity. And if it's not mutual, it's not welcome. You've stepped into your power, not to impress her, not to prove anything, but because it's who you were always meant to be. And once you've tasted peace, games lose all their flavor. It's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. It's about no longer confusing emotional chaos with emotional depth. You're not here to decode contradictions. You're not here to question your place in someone's life every time they feel bored, distant, or indecisive. You are not an option. You are not a backup plan. You are not here to audition for love in a relationship built on tests and traps. If she can't offer consistency, you won't offer access. If she plays games, she plays them alone. Because the man you've become doesn't trade his self-respect for affection that's only given when convenient. You've outgrown inconsistency. You've outgrown one-sided effort. You've outgrown having to ask where you stand. The love you accept now must come with clarity, with presence, with peace. And if it doesn't, you simply walk, not out of anger, but out of alignment. Because peace is your new non-negotiable. Your energy is no longer available to be drained by someone who confuses attention with affection and silence with strength. You've reclaimed yourself. Your mind is no longer a battlefield for her approval. Your heart is no longer a playground for her confusion. You are now guided by standards, not emotions. You don't go where you're tolerated. You go where you're respected. You don't invest in potential. You invest in patterns. And when the pattern is inconsistency, manipulation, or disrespect, you don't argue, you don't explain, you exit. That is your power, the ability to walk away and never look back. Because a man who knows what he brings is never afraid to lose someone who can't match it. She may try again. She may return with apologies, attention, charm. But you've seen the cycle. You've lived through the highs followed by the withdrawals. You've experienced the games that wear a mask of affection. And now, you don't fall for words. You watch behavior. You don't believe promises. You observe consistency. And when it's not there, you don't try to fix it. You remove yourself from it. Quietly, completely. You're not bitter. You're not broken. You're better. Because you finally understand that love isn't meant to feel like confusion. It's not supposed to leave you questioning your worth. It's not supposed to drain your soul. Real love builds, protects, nourishes. It doesn't test how much you'll take before you break. It doesn't make you feel like you're always one misstep away from losing it. And now that you know that, now that you've felt the difference, you will never go back to chasing illusions dressed as intimacy. This is your new standard. A heart that doesn't beg, a mind that doesn't obsess, a soul that doesn't settle. You are no longer participating in emotional warfare just to be close to someone who never truly valued you. You've learned, you've grown, you've risen. And now the only game left to play is the one where you win by refusing to play at all. Every time you choose yourself over chaos, you become stronger. Every time you say no to emotional games, you sharpen your focus. Every time you walk away from someone who couldn't see your value, you step deeper into your purpose. This isn't about her anymore. It never was. This is about the version of you that allowed it, tolerated it, and kept returning to it, hoping it would finally make sense. That version of you needed approval to feel complete. That version of you tried to fix what was never your responsibility. That version of you kept lowering your standard, hoping she'd eventually rise to meet it. But not anymore. Now you live differently. You don't argue with confusion. You delete access to your energy. You don't chase explanations. You anchor yourself in peace. You don't look for validation from someone who benefits from your insecurity. Because the man who has direction doesn't get lost in distractions. You see the games for what they are, a test of your emotional discipline, a challenge to your self-respect. And you've already passed that test by not playing, by standing still while she tried to push you, by holding the line while she tried to cross your boundaries, by rising in silence instead of drowning in reaction. There's nothing left to fix in her. There's only something to build in you. Your mission, your mindset, your inner world. That's where the power lives. You don't need closure from her. You don't need her to understand your silence, your strength, your absence. Let her think you didn't care. Let her assume you gave up. What she'll never realize is you didn't quit. You ascended. You chose peace over chaos, purpose over distraction, and your growth became the answer to everything she never acknowledged. Now everything changes. You move differently. Speak with more clarity and carry a presence that doesn't waver. People feel your energy shift. You don't need to force respect anymore. You command it by existing fully in your power. You no longer over-explain your standards. You no longer chase people who pull away. You give them the gift of distance, not to hurt them, but to protect your focus. Because when your life is built on direction, emotional chaos becomes irrelevant. This isn't just healing, it's becoming the man who no longer gets caught in someone else's storm. Becoming the man who doesn't need noise to feel important. Becoming the man whose peace is louder than her games. That man doesn't seek revenge, he seeks results. He doesn't look back, he builds forward. And he never forgets what it felt like to betray himself for someone who never truly saw him. That memory becomes fuel, that pain becomes purpose, that wound becomes wisdom. So you keep rising. With every step forward, you leave behind the version of you who accepted less. And you step fully into the one who never will again, not out of spite, but out of truth, out of power, out of love for yourself. The man you were before was driven by hope. He believed that if he just held on long enough, if he gave enough chances, if he showed enough loyalty, things would finally change. He waited for consistency that never came. He explained himself to someone who was never listening. He showed love to someone who sought his weakness. That man was full of heart but lacked boundaries. He was sincere but lost. He confused effort with value and kept investing in someone who was emotionally unavailable by choice, not by circumstance. And for a long time, he thought it was strength to stay. He thought it was noble to endure. But staying in dysfunction isn't strength. Sacrificing yourself for someone who won't meet you halfway isn't love. It's self-abandonment disguised as commitment. And now that illusion is broken. The fog has cleared. The heartache has turned into vision. You've realized that true strength is walking away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You don't need her to explain what she did. You already understand it. And you don't need her to regret losing you. You just need to never lose yourself again. This is the season where you protect your peace like it's oxygen. You no longer tolerate energy that drains you, words that manipulate you, or silence that punishes you. You've seen what happens when you ignore your intuition. You've lived through the cost of staying too long. And now your decisions are different. Your standards are permanent. Your growth is non-negotiable. You're not afraid of being alone anymore. You're afraid of giving your time to anything that slows your evolution. Let her play her games in someone else's life. Let her confuse someone else's mind. Let her test someone else's patience. You're not angry. You're aware. You're not cold. You're careful. You don't build walls to keep love out. You build boundaries to keep chaos away. Because the right woman won't need to trick you to feel valuable. She won't test your worth. She'll recognize it. She won't need to see you chase. She'll match your energy with respect, with honesty, with stability. So keep rising. Keep choosing yourself, not as a reaction to her, but as a reflection of your growth. You're no longer trying to escape pain. You're chasing purpose. You're not proving anything to her. You're building everything for you. And the man who walks with purpose doesn't look back. He doesn't need closure. He doesn't need revenge. He just lives in such a way that his evolution silences every doubt, every insult, every game ever played against him. You are not broken. You are not bitter. You are awake. You've seen through the illusion. And now you move with intention. You speak with purpose. You walk with presence. And you only invite in what reflects the man you've become. Because once you've healed, once you've risen, once you've detached completely, nothing she does can reach you, not anymore, not ever again. The greatest turning point in a man's life is the moment he no longer feels the need to convince anyone of his worth. Not with words, not with actions, not with sacrifice. Because when a man finally understands who he is and what he brings, he becomes untouchable. Not because he's better than anyone, but because he no longer allows confusion to distort his direction. He no longer lets temporary emotions hijack long-term peace. He no longer chases connection where respect is missing. And that shift changes everything. That shift is what separates the man who gets played from the man who rises above the game. You're not here to be someone's emotional cushion while they explore their options. You're not here to prove your loyalty to someone who tests you instead of trusts you. You're not here to earn affection that should flow freely, not be held hostage. The woman who plays games counts on your weakness. She counts on your fear of loss, your attachment to potential, your hope that this time she'll be different. But you're not operating from fear anymore. You're not driven by need. You're driven by clarity. You've trained your heart to follow your standard, not your longing. You've trained your mind to respond with strength, not with desperation. There is a level of manhood where emotional bait no longer works, where seductive silence, passive aggression, and manipulative affection all fall flat, because you don't take the bait when your soul is grounded. You don't step into her emotional traps when your life is too full to be disrupted. You don't chase when you've built something she can't take away. Peace, purpose, discipline, direction. Those are things she can't control. And the more you invest in them, the more her games unravel. Let her watch you build without needing her attention. Let her see you glow in silence while she wonders how she lost access. That's not revenge. That's restoration. That's what happens when a man breaks the loop and stops assigning value to people who fail to see his. You are no longer seeking emotional highs from someone who hands out affection like a prize to be won. You've outgrown that version of yourself. Now, you give to those who give back. You open up to those who show up. You pour into those who pour into you. This is who you are now. A man who doesn't chase what confuses him. A man who doesn't hold space for anyone who threatens his peace. A man who doesn't fall for words. He watches consistency. And when consistency is absent, he's already gone. Not with a dramatic exit, but with a quiet shift. Because real men don't announce their boundaries, they live by them. And when those boundaries are crossed, they don't yell, they vanish. That is power, that is self-respect, that is freedom. And the more you stay aligned with that, the less you even remember what it felt like to beg for what was never real. Because now, everything real flows to you, naturally, effortlessly, without games. There comes a point where your silence becomes more powerful than any explanation you could ever give. Not because you're avoiding the truth, but because you've outgrown the need to defend your decisions to those who refuse to understand your worth. You're no longer trapped in the cycle of over-explaining, over-giving, overstaying. You've reclaimed your emotional energy and redirected it inward, toward your goals, your discipline, your evolution. That's the man who can't be manipulated. That's the man who no longer falls for the pattern of hot and cold. He's seen it too many times. And this time, he finally chose himself. You used to give warnings. You used to ask for respect. You used to hope she'd see your worth and meet you with the same heart you offered. But now you've stopped waiting. You've stopped asking. You've stopped hoping for her to become someone she's not ready to be. You're not angry. You're awake. Awake to how many times you ignored your gut. Awake to how often you accepted less just to keep her close. Awake to how much of yourself you handed over just to maintain something that never poured back into you. This version of you no longer runs in circles trying to earn clarity from someone who thrives in confusion. You don't match energy anymore. You lead it. You set the tone. And if someone can't meet that tone, they simply lose the privilege of access. That's not arrogance, that's growth, that's maturity. That's what happens when you finally understand that not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone is worthy of your patience. And not everyone gets to see the man you've become after all the pain you've survived. The game ends the moment you realize you never needed to win it. Because what's real doesn't require effort that feels like war. What's real feels peaceful. It feels steady. It builds you instead of breaking you. It uplifts you instead of testing how much damage you'll tolerate. You now know the difference. You feel it in your nervous system. You recognize peace when it enters the room, and you spot chaos before it even speaks. That awareness is everything. It's what protects you now. It's what guides your choices, your presence, your energy. You no longer invest out of fear. You no longer react out of insecurity. You move with calm. You speak with certainty. You give only where it flows both ways. That's the shift. That's what makes you dangerous to anyone who once thought they could control you with mixed signals, withdrawal, or silence. You don't need to be louder. You just need to keep rising. Quietly, consistently, relentlessly. And as you do, her games fade into the background. Her absence becomes irrelevant, because you've already filled every empty space with purpose, with strength, with truth. And now, the only thing left to lose is every version of yourself that ever settled for less.